In today's video, we are going to cover the top 5 questions you absolutely have to make sure you answer in any one of your interview questions. Welcome back to Interview At, where we teach you how to use the Amazon leadership principles to land your dream job. It does not matter the role. It does not matter the company. If you use the principles we teach here, you will show up better in your job interview. I know I said 5 questions, but it's actually going to be 15, but it's spread out over 3 different sections. And in this video, we're going to talk about the STAR method. Now, there's a lot of really good videos on the internet, on YouTube. I don't need to go into what the STAR method is in any great level of detail, but all you need to know is that STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. And so of those 15 questions, what I'm going to focus on is 5 here today that you need to answer in the first part of your interview question. One of the reasons why I love the STAR format is because, well, it forces linearity in your storytelling. What do I mean by that? Well, think about the movie Memento or Enigma. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. It's absolutely going to melt your brain. But linearity is important. It's how the human mind has evolved. We want stories to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's how movies progress. It's how TV shows progress. Plays, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Stories, beginning, middle, and end. There's always some situation that happens that disrupts the normal scene of things. That's the action. And then there's result, a new normal, right? So you've got beginning, middle, end. Normal, something happens, new normal. That's just how it goes. That's how the mind wants to process stories. So what have I seen over and over again as I've done more than 200 of these free mock interviews on interviewyat.com? By the way, if you would like to get your free interview, sign up for your free mock interview at interviewyat.com. What I've seen over and over again is, well, we'll just call it nonlinear storytelling, where you just start giving an answer. And by you, I mean the people that I'm interviewing. But they'll start giving their answer, and then they realize they forgot something, and then they'll jump backward in time, and then they'll keep talking, and then they'll go forward. And it's literally a series of cul-de-sac, like how I use the proper plural version of that. It's a series of cul-de-sac, and as an interviewer, it's just too hard to follow, right? So STAR format forces you to progress the story in a linear fashion. It forces you to categorize your content in a way that is easier for the interviewer to understand, and that's super important. So in today's video, we are going to focus on just the S and the T, the situation and the task. I used to think about, when I was getting ready for my interviews, problem, action, result, but STAR format just works better. So we'll just put the S and the T as the beginning of your story, the situation and the task. You see how I'm doing storytelling with a bit of nonlinearity after I just told you not to do that? What I've seen now with all of these interviews is people doing basically the same thing I was doing when I was prepping for my VP of product management and chief product officer roles. They're scripting out all their answers. They're basically trying to imagine all the questions they might get and writing out long answers. Now, I've seen gigantic Word documents. I've seen gigantic spreadsheets. I created those. That's how I started years ago when I was doing this. And years ago. I've seen it over and over again. And we're all kind of getting to the same place, which is we're trying to script out these massive answers. And we spend a ton of time writing them out, but we're not actually spending the time we need to spend on, 1, editing. All right, let's just start there. But 2, asking yourself critically, am I answering the questions that really matter? Because while you may have been asked a question about, tell me about your biggest failure in the last 24 months, that's the question, right? The question behind the question, leadership principle, is ownership. But really, when you're communicating that to the interviewer, you ask yourself, if I was presenting this internally to my leadership team, at the company you're currently at, what questions would they ask me as I'm setting that up? If you're not answering those questions in your answer, you failed. You might have written out a really, really long answer, and I'm sure it has a lot of great words. Here's another fun fact. We don't write the way we speak, and so when you try to regurgitate that back and you're basically giving a speech instead of telling a story, what you're going to find is you're stumbling over your words because we don't talk the way we speak. Be that as it may, you are going to want to make sure you answer at least these 5 critical questions to have a good situation task set up. So here they are. Number 1, what problem are you trying to solve? It surprises me again and again and again how few people, when setting up their situation task, don't clearly highlight what the problem is they're trying to solve. If you can't communicate that in 2 seconds, 1, that's just a communication fail, but 2, you're losing the room. The interviewer, like you, probably overworked, probably tired, probably has problems with home life and kids and balancing work life. They have all the same challenges you have. And now they're sitting in a room with a person they've never met. Maybe they've looked at your resume, maybe they've looked at your LinkedIn, and they have to decide in 45 to 60 minutes whether or not you're a person that they want to say, yeah, I'm going to put my personal equity on the line and say we should hire this person. Don't lose them with bad communication. So 2 sentences, 3 at most. What problem are you trying to solve? Number 2. For what customer are you trying to solve this problem? Similar to number 1, if you can't clearly communicate who this is for, what the customer looks like, how are you going to know if you're successful? See, it's a critical issue that a lot of people, this is specifically true with my engineering brethren, we like to just go solve problems instead of clearly defining who the customer is. We're going to go solve this for. We think of ourselves as the customer, and unfortunately, that rarely works out well. So define the customer, be able to communicate that in your situation and task. For whom are you solving this problem? Number 3, why is this important to solve now, or why was it important to solve at that time? Is it because market conditions changed? You had new data, maybe a bug surfaced, customer complaints. Why was it important to solve now, right? Versus later. And kind of tied to that, why hadn't it been solved before, right? You need to be able to effectively communicate that. Number 4, why were we, the company, the team, whatever, me, best positioned to solve this problem, right? Why hadn't another company solved it? Why hadn't some other team? Why hadn't we solved it as ourselves? Why are we best positioned to take this on? Maybe another team within the company should be solving this problem, but be able to clearly communicate why we were the best resources to solve that problem. And number 5, what negative outcome were you avoiding by prioritizing this work? Look, I hear it again and again. You talk to these people in the interviews and you're hearing their answers, and that's great. And then I poke with just one question. Well, why did you prioritize that work ahead of any other? It almost never fails. People struggle to answer that question. If you don't have a clear prioritization framework about how you're doing your work, you're basically communicating that you're reactionary to kind of inputs, which is bad. And as a leader, especially more senior folks, you need to be able to demonstrate that you have a prioritization framework for how you are deciding what to work on now. This gets back to, there's another video I did this, but when you kind of think about kind of levels of leadership and how you progress through an organization, one of the key progressions is, look, when you're fresh out of school, leadership team tells you what to do and how to do it. You get a promotion, now they tell you what to do, you figure out how to do it. You get a promotion, not only are you telling them what you're going to do, you're going to tell them how you're going to do it. You get a promotion, you're not only deciding what you're going to do and how to do it, you're figuring out what resources on your team need to work on, as well as negotiating with other divisions, other teams, other leaders with resources from their teams to make sure you're working towards shared common objectives, OKRs, whatever. That's kind of a progression framework. And if you're communicating that you made a decision with team members to do work, you'd better be able to show that you can prioritize that work. Okay, hopefully you found that useful. In the next video, we're going to cover the task portion and the 5 questions you need to answer in your interview answer to make sure that you are effectively communicating and showing up as your best self in your job to win the interview.